The Outer Worlds 2 is a great RPG with amazing dialogue and consequences. The combat is fun, but can get repetitive. There will be no comparisons in this review between the first game and the second game. The only thing that can be said about the second game is that it's bigger and better than the first one. But the game still has flaws that we can't ignore. The beginning of the game is an introduction to Earth's Directorate, a company that sends agents out to planets to solve their issues. You're an agent, a commander with a full squad in the middle of a mission. Your mission is to help Augustine. The first mission is the introduction to your character's perks and skills, and depending on how you build your character, the mission changes drastically. The mission goes south and your team gets separated. You wake up 10 years later and see your main companion, Niles. The beginning of this mission is an amazing way to start the game because it immediately sets you on your main mission. Your main mission is now to hunt down Augustine. Augustine is an agent from the same company you work for, and her mission is to find out why there are rifts around the universe and try to close them. During the mission, she learns she's willing to do everything in her power to complete her mission. This includes double crossing you and your team. It is up to you to kill her or find out why she did it. After that, you have to find a way to deal with the rifts that started the whole thing in the whole universe. You have the option to play the game in first person, third person, or third person with the camera far away from the character. There are very specific ways to make these options work. Of course, the choices are yours to play however you want to play, but in my personal opinion, I had a great time playing the first person while shooting and using the third person for melee combat, melee weapons. When the game starts, the game gives you something called TTD. It's basically a skill that slows down time and makes headshots easier. That's great for whoever's trying to shoot weapons and start the game like that. But I was a little worried that me using melee weapons was going to make the L1 button useless throughout my gameplay. As you progress through the game, it gives you a second ability. This ability is to dissolve bodies. This is clearly for people that are trying to play stealthily. Then the third ability is the one that I was looking for. It's one that basically gives you an overshield to take extra damage. The last ability was a mask that opened the possibilities of opening doors that you couldn't before and see some enemies that turn invisible. Overall, there is an ability for however you want to play the game, and that's amazing. For my first character, I made dummy. I chose the idiot route. The character only had melee weapons and grenade. To make it even funnier, I made the character have some knowledge on medicine. Just the thought of my character running around smacking anything that was too smart with a big ass hammer was hilarious. Even more hilarious, throwing 20 grenades at anything that was too far away from me. And even more hysterical was having a dumb character that for some reason knows about chemical reactions. Just by me describing that, you should know that my first gameplay was hilarious. It was the most fun I've had in a while. Every time an NPC said anything and I was given the dumb response, I would instantly choose it. The NPCs were dumbfounded every single time. In most of the main story missions, you can find clues that can open doors to do main missions in different ways. You have choices like go full out and kill everything in sight, go in stealth, solve the problem by talking, or if you're smart enough, you can even solve the issues with knowledge on medicine, engineering, or hacking. The two playthroughs I had were so different that it made me want to do another run just to challenge the game's diversity. At first, I thought the game would block me from advancing a main mission because the choices on some doors had to do with perks I didn't have. But thankfully, when that was the case, you could find the key on a body that you killed or it was hidden somewhere. This does not mean that you will be able to do all of the side missions though. Choices from main missions carry to side missions, and those can lock you from doing those other side missions. Also, if you make a hilarious mistake of putting down mines on the field and the NPC dies, well, you just failed that mission. For my dumb character, the option was almost always full frontal attacks. And when a door needed to be opened, I had the option to just press random buttons in the hopes I didn't activate any alarms. I always activated the alarms though.
If this exchange is not to your liking, I can accommodate you with a bullet instead.
Alright, so I'm just gonna start with saying what everybody wants to hear. The companions here are not screwable. You cannot screw your companions in this game. Fucking weirdos. With that being said, you have 6 companions. 2 of them you get immediately when you start the game. One is Niles and the other one is Val, a robot. The other ones, you get them through main missions and side missions. You can finish the game without all the companions, and you can even play the game with no companions. It's completely up to you. Having a companion is not entirely necessary to finish the game, though. The skills they offer are complementary to your gameplay. It's up to you what you want to have in your inventory when it comes to their skills. You can have two companions with you at all times. It is fun to try to have companions that you can benefit from. Like, for example, I had Ines in my party because she was a medic and I needed to be healed all the time because I was just throwing hammers around. I wasn't worrying about taking damage. Every companion has 2 or 3 side missions that you can chase, and these missions are basically what gives backgrounds to the characters. I do have to say there are better companions than others. They're written better. Like, for example, Niles has more depth than all of the other companions. And there's another companion I don't want to spoil that he's pretty cool too. I would have loved if all of the companions in the game had the same depth as Niles. Now, for what I believe is the single best thing in the whole game, that is the flaw system. The game has something called the flaw system, which is basically the more you do an action, the higher the chances of you getting a skill that has to do with that action. And you get a perk that's a minus. So you're gaining something and losing something. These abilities are basically what changes the gameplay the most. The good thing about them is that it's up to you to accept them. You don't have to accept them. There are 25 of these abilities, and you won't see them all on a regular first playthrough. You have to be very consistent on what you're doing for the game to give you those perks. Every perk has a positive and a negative, and combining these flaws changes the way the game plays every single time. On my first playthrough, I chose a bunch of flaws. Well, there was one specifically that was messing up my whole playthrough, and it's this one. Basically, I had a chance of stealing anything I looked at, and whatever I stole would cost 100% more when I sold it at the vendors. Now, imagine what would happen when I was talking to an NPC in a main mission, and for some reason, I just looked to the right and I saw cigarettes, and they saw me stealing their cigarettes. Peak gaming.
Stamped and signed. Officially on the payroll for another 78 days. Including today. But I'm counting.
From the moment you step down from your ship to the moment you get to the first little town, you see the difference in planets. None of these planets are Earth, so they differ massively in color and the creatures that exist in it. In Paradise Island, the very first town that you get to, it is extremely small, with a lot of NPCs that you can get side missions from. The town may be small, but everything in the town is accessible. I like the way that they design the points of interest, though. There is a huge house or castle in the middle of this whole town, and then all around are small houses that have little secrets or a bunch of loot that you can pick up. Sometimes there's houses in the wild that act as a side mission, and it's a nice surprise finding them without a point guiding you to them. Even though the environment and the designs are beautiful, you can get tired of looking at the sky from the lack of enemies in the open zones. The game is not open world, which in most cases means that the open zones are full of things to interact with. Sadly, this game has a lot of open spaces between points of interest that are completely empty. Just open roads with 1 or 2 encounters, and then the rest of the road is completely empty. Don't get me wrong though, sometimes things happen that make you laugh, or you can find things laying around about 90% of the time you're running with nothing happening. That is when the fast travel points come in handy. I would honestly suggest to anyone that plays this game to just use fast travel points after traveling the same road twice. The fast travel points are even usable if you're in a mission and that the mission is locking a location. It doesn't stop you from traveling from place to place as long as you're not in combat. If you don't want to fast travel and you're fine with running around, then I got some great news for you. The game does not have a stamina mechanic. You can run anywhere without getting tired. Not only that, the game has no over encumbrance mechanics, so you can pick up anything and you will never be limited by the weight of your backpack. Not only that, there is no weight limit, so you can pick up everything in the game and have it in your backpack. So you don't have to spend time managing your inventory. Now, speaking of inventory and looting everything in the map, the blue highlight on the lootables make that even easier. I am normally used to using a sensor ability, press R3 to see what's lootable in a room. When I came across this game, I felt extremely happy I didn't have to do any of that. The moment you get into a room, you see things highlight blue. You pick them up. That's as simple as it gets. Now, the weapons in the game vary from guns, melee, and grenades, but there isn't a huge amount of weapons that work differently. There are extremely fun to use. There's some weapons that have skills that are very funny. Like for example, there's a gun that shrinks enemies. There's a melee hammer that shoots electricity with heavy attacks, and there's a lot more. The clothing is distinct and normally how it looks, but the perks on the clothing are extremely repetitive. Most of the perks have to do with damage resistances, and that doesn't normally add to most of the builds that you can make. There are also mods you can find or build that add a little to the build diversity. Like one of them shocks everyone around you when they melee you. However, the amount of mods with skills like this are not too big to get you around only with mods. So I would say the mod system is not really good. Now let's talk about what's really, really good about this game. Even though I enjoyed a lot about this game, one of the things I enjoyed the most was the voice acting. Every single character you interact with delivers their lines perfectly. Sometimes the game does feel a bit too smart for me. Like the game throws a bunch of words that could confuse the low IQ people like me. I was basically Googling words on my phone every interaction. There is a whole lot of reading though. When you're interacting with computers, I hope that they can interact and voice acting in those computers whenever you interact with them instead of just having me try to read all of that. I am reading all of that. Not only is the voice acting good, but the radio stations in the game are hilarious as well. I didn't know about this feature until like halfway through the game. But once I started listening to the radio, as I was going through missions, I was having a lot of fun just listening to conversations. Not only that, I was having a lot of fun just listening to the radio with the old school music and the futurist music and the ads that the game gives you. It's just hilarious.
It's a spending your bits. She's just the best choice. It's Auntie's choice.
Now, as I've said before, the game is not perfect, but the flaws that it has, they're not really that bad. They're just things that I would want them to change eventually on a third game. If you're going to cut corners and be lazy, you can do it and still do a good job. Well, why would you try to cut corners and still do the full job somehow? Sometimes you get to a computer. The computer describes what action you do to unlock a door. And then it shows you the exact same action that it just described. Not only that, some other times the game describes the actions and just gets back to gameplay. And other times the game shows you the action and doesn't tell you. So there's three options. It's either do one of the three, don't do all of the three, because you're doing triple the work. There's just no consistency in the matter, which is kind of weird because they can just stick to doing one of the things instead of doing all three of the things. Now, for my biggest complaint, and this is extremely personal, is the fact that there are no punching weapons. The game has melee weapons like scythes, hammers, sticks, batons, but there are no brass knuckles or boxing gloves, and I feel like that's a missed opportunity to expand on the melee side of gameplay. Now, melee combat without actual melee, basically, but that's completely my opinion. Even with all the flaws the game has, you can find how hilarious and fun the game is. Even if the factions are confusing, the mechanics used to give you side missions and the options for the main missions make this game extremely replayable. Making a new character with different stats and perks is a very easy way to start just another playthrough, but have a completely different outcome. The gameplay changes drastically once you start tapping into the flaw mechanics, even though the weapon and armor perks are repetitive. This game proves that a flawed game can be a good game.